Yesterday, just after I recorded the mask-themed video, I ended up getting really sick. I just had a headache that came out of nowhere, and then a little bit later, my stomach began to be really queasy. And so most of yesterday was spent in sickness, and that was the inspiration for this deck that we're going to be playing, which is a headache-themed deck. It's actually this one here. And it may take a couple of minutes to explain the deck, so if you just want to skip right ahead to the gameplay, that's totally understandable. Evo Firecracker is there because when you have a headache, you're much more prone to loud noises and bright lights. So Firecracker kind of represents the sensory overload that you can get, just because she's incredibly loud, incredibly bright. There's a bunch of flashes from the explosions, and she has to be dealt with, otherwise she's just a nuisance. So it kind of represents how loud sounds and bright lights have to be dealt with when you have a headache, otherwise it just makes your headache much worse. Evo Witch is there to kind of represent the longevity of it, because sometimes no matter how much water you drink, no matter how much medicine you take, the headache just persists. Just like no matter how much elixir you throw at the Evo Witch, how many times you try to kill it, it just seems to stay there and stay alive. So she's there to kind of represent the longevity and the headache just staying there. Hero Wizard, I originally had Tornado in there, but I realized we already had two spells, so we put Hero Wizard in instead, just because his ability is essentially a fire tornado, and the tornado is there for the dizzying factor of it, because when you have a headache, things are kind of uneasy. You can sometimes get dizzy really easily, so it kind of fits with the whole swirling theme of the tornado. Inferno Dragon is there because oftentimes headaches start super small, and then if you don't deal with them, then they become much more severe, just like the Inferno Dragon starts by dealing very little, very insignificant damage, but if you don't deal with it, then it starts dealing massive damage. Royal Delivery is there because my headache yesterday just came out of nowhere. Just like the Royal Delivery drops out of the sky, you don't really see it coming, it's kind of that surprise factor. And sometimes when you have a headache, it feels like you're being hit over the head with a falling wooden box, so Royal Delivery kind of fits the surprise factor. Poison is there for the headache itself, just kind of slow, lingering damage that takes down your health over time. E-Giant is there for the pulsing and the throbbing that you get in your head, because he has those 2 electro probes on his back, which kind of pulse and throb, and oftentimes when you have a headache, that's what your head is doing. And then Rage is there for the irritability factor, because one thing about when you're not feeling well, you're very irritable. Your family member even makes a noise and you become annoyed at them. So Rage is there to represent the irritability factor. So this is the headache themed deck that we're going to be trying to win with today. We're doing it in the classic challenge mode, just because I don't have Evo Firecracker unlocked normally. And one of the things that I realized throughout the whole headache experience is that oftentimes there are hidden blessings, and there's good things that happen in rough circumstances, and we oftentimes don't realize it in the moment. It's something that we kind of notice after the fact. And with the whole headache thing, I think everyone's been sick at some point in their life. Everyone knows what it's like to have a really bad headache, and it's not an enjoyable thing. It's quite unenjoyable, and oftentimes all you can think about in the moment is just how uncomfortable it is, right? You can only really think about the pain that you're in and how much your head is hurting, and like in the moment you don't really realize or see any good that comes out of it, because you're in the midst of it. And that was kind of the case yesterday. Is I started out feeling just pretty terrible, but when I woke up this morning, one of the things that I realized is that the whole headache thing, it fixed my sleep schedule in a sense, because I had a really bad habit of going to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning and waking up at noon the following day. So my sleep schedule was just messed up, and I just couldn't really go to sleep any earlier, just because I didn't get tired any earlier. because I woke up so late, and so I didn't get tired until so late. And so, I had just been in kind of a bad, just been in a bad sleep cycle of going to bed too late and waking up too late. And essentially, what I realized is that the whole headache thing kind of fixed that in a way, because I spent pretty much from maybe 6 p.m. onward in bed, kind of resting and taking a nap, and then I went to bed uh, super early as well. I think I went out. I went out once to like get something to drink, but for the most part, I stayed in bed and I went to bed super early because I had to. I wasn't feeling well, and I essentially realized that it kind of fixed my sleep schedule in a sense, because I was able to wake up at 8 a.m. this morning any without any issues, without any difficulty, just because I went to bed much earlier. Please, cards, go. Are we really just gonna? We really just clutched that up. I don't know how we won that game, but um, essentially what I'm saying is, looking back, in the moment it wasn't enjoyable, right? The headache wasn't enjoyable, but there was something good that came out of it. I was able to go to sleep earlier and kind of reset my sleep schedule in a sense, just because I wasn't feeling well and had to go to bed earlier. And there are lots of other things that a lot of people go through something that they think is difficult or rough, and then looking back, it turns out there's something good. There's kind of a hidden blessing in that experience. There was I think it was called Aviation Disasters or something. There was a show that I was watching on YouTube of this airplane, and it had a mechanical failure, and it ended up falling from the sky, and everybody who was on it died. And the episode was about how they solved the issue, how they solved what was wrong with the plane, but it also mentioned something at the very end. Okay. It mentioned something at the very end about how there was a passenger that was supposed to be on the plane, but she ended up getting to her gate way too late. She ended up not showing up in time for the flight, and so she missed the flight. And in the moment, she was probably thinking that it was a terrible thing. All right, I think nobody likes missing their flight. And I haven't been on too many flights, so I've never showed up late to a flight and been like denied access on the plane. But my dad has. He used to travel quite a bit for business, and he knows how it feels to show up late to a gate and not be able to get on the plane. And it's a huge inconvenience, because a lot of times it's the last flight of the night, and so you have to get a hotel and look for a flight the following day, and so it's a big inconvenience. And so that lady who showed up late to her flight was probably thinking the same thing. She was probably thinking, man, this is terrible, it's such an inconvenience. But later she realized that it was actually a blessing in disguise, because she wasn't on the plane that crashed. And so I was just thinking about how oftentimes there's hidden blessings in things that we don't realize until after the fact. And this is another story that I think I've mentioned this before on the channel, but it's been a little while. It was about the Ten Boom family who helped to hide Jews in World War II, and they ended up getting found out by the Gestapo. So they ended up going to okay, I was going to say, I hope that got down in time. So they ended up getting sent to a concentration camp, and Betsy, one of the sisters, there were two sisters, Betsy and Corey, and in one of the camps there were a bunch of fleas in their barracks, in the place where they were sleeping. There was tons of fleas, and also, please don't tell me this would be horrible if we choked this match. But that looks like that's what we're gonna be. Okay, I have to focus before the match ends so we don't lose. I think all we need to do is poison and then we'll be good. Um, but essentially, there were these two sisters, and they went, and there were a bunch of fleas in one of the concentration camps where they were staying, and it was specifically in their barracks. It was specifically where they were living. And at first, one of the sisters was, incredibly ungrateful. She's like, "Why is this happening? Our life is already terrible enough." And the other sister was, chose to be grateful for them, even though there was nothing really appealing about them in the moment. But what they found out is that uh, none of the guards came into their barracks either. The guards would go into other barracks and kind of torment and beat up other prisoners and you know get on other barracks and other people, but they never went into theirs because they didn't want to get bit by all the fleas. And so they ended up realizing after the fact that these fleas were actually a blessing because they prevented the guards from coming in and kind of tormenting them. And so hopefully that just gives you a little bit of comfort if you're going through something difficult, to know that there's most likely going to be a day where you look back and you're grateful for the experience that you went through for one reason or another. Maybe you learned something valuable. Maybe you become a stronger person. Maybe it ended up, saving you from something that you didn't realize at the time. Um, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of comfort, because most times you can't see the blessings as you're going through it. But on the other side, you can look back and realize that there was something good that came out of it. So that was the headache themed deck. We were able to win both games, so it's actually a decent deck. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your day.